Arthur Schopenhauer, a prominent figure in 19th-century German philosophy, offers a profound and intricate understanding of human existence, deeply rooted in his concept of will, specifically, the will to live. Schopenhauer believed that this will is an unconscious, aimless, and blind force that governs all of nature, including human beings. It propels us into an insatiable cycle of striving and desire, which manifests in our perpetual craving for external things and our need to consume other living organisms to sustain ourselves. This endless pursuit, driven by will, is the root cause of human suffering. The inability to fully satiate these desires results in a constant, unfulfilling quest for pleasure, which never provides lasting satisfaction. Schopenhauer, despite his notorious pessimism, sought to develop a philosophical framework to alleviate the suffering inherent in life. This may seem paradoxical at first, given his bleak outlook, but it mirrors the efforts of other philosophical traditions, such as Buddhism. Much like the Buddha, Schopenhauer subjected himself to an unflinching examination of life's miseries in order to propose a solution. After his death, he left behind an unfinished manuscript titled Die Kunst, glücklich sein, the art of being happy, which offers 50 rules for life aimed at reducing the pain of existence. Schopenhauer's philosophy is frequently interpreted through a lens of disenchantment. He presents a vision of the world that strips away illusions, revealing a reality that can be harsh, painful, and even ugly. Yet, this emphasis on life's hardships, according to Schopenhauer, holds the key to understanding how we might escape them. He famously stated, "Every state of welfare, every feeling of satisfaction, is negative in its character. That is to say, it consists in freedom from pain, which is the positive element of existence." Thus, Schopenhauer concluded that happiness is not to be measured by fleeting joys or pleasures, but by the degree to which one can minimize suffering. The insight that life's pleasures are temporary and its pain more enduring has much in common with the teachings of the Buddha. Schopenhauer was deeply influenced by Buddhist philosophy and Hindu texts like the Upanishads, which similarly explore the idea that human suffering is rooted in desire and attachment. According to Schopenhauer, we do not perceive the world as it truly is. Instead, we see representations of it, constructed by our minds. This idea, drawn from the work of Immanuel Kant, suggests that there is no object without a subject. Everything we observe is filtered through our perceptions, and these perceptions do not reveal things as they truly are. This metaphysical framework can be both disorienting and empowering. On one hand, it is unsettling to think that our perceptions are not objective truths. On the other hand, it liberates us by implying that we have the power to change how we relate to the world. Schopenhauer argues that external circumstances do not inherently determine our suffering. Rather, it is our interpretation of these circumstances that shapes our experience. By altering our perceptions, we can begin to loosen the grip of the will and free ourselves from its ceaseless demands. But how does one go about such liberation? Schopenhauer advocated for asceticism, the practice of self-denial and sense-restraint, as the most direct way to weaken the hold of the will. By turning away from worldly pleasures and desires, individuals can subdue the impulses that lead to suffering. However, he recognized that asceticism is not for everyone. Only a small number of people, through intense discipline, manage to fully liberate themselves from suffering, a state akin to enlightenment in Buddhist traditions. For the rest of us, Schopenhauer suggested a more moderate path, reducing pain rather than seeking impossible happiness. In his 50 Rules for Life, Schopenhauer presents guidelines for the normal person, as opposed to the ascetic. He rejected two extremes, the Stoic ideal of detachment and the Machiavellian pursuit of power and pleasure at the expense of others. Instead, he proposed a middle path, grounded in a concept of eudaimonia, borrowed from Stoic philosophy, but with a different meaning. For Schopenhauer, eudaimonia does not refer to flourishing through virtue and living in accordance with nature, but rather to an existence that, upon reflection, is more preferable than non-existence. In other words, a happy life is one that is less painful than the alternative of death. The key to attaining this more bearable life lies in adjusting our expectations. Schopenhauer's first lesson is that we should relinquish any entitlement to happiness and focus instead on reducing suffering. He observed that young people, in particular, hold the misguided belief that life is meant to be enjoyed. This false expectation is perpetuated in modern times through media like movies and television, much as novels and poems did in his era. Chasing the illusion of perfect happiness only leads to real disappointment and misery. Thus, Schopenhauer advised, the safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy. With age comes the wisdom to abandon the pursuit of happiness that often torments us in our youth. Rather than seeking the highest pleasures, Schopenhauer urged us to aim for a life that minimizes suffering. He noted that even those with access to immense wealth and luxury, such as celebrities, often experience profound unhappiness. This illustrates that material pleasures and social adoration do not guarantee fulfillment. In fact, the pursuit of such transient joys frequently leads to addiction, depression, and in extreme cases, even suicide. To avoid such pitfalls, Schopenhauer suggested that we carefully cultivate a life that minimizes pain. Pain arises from various sources, including unrealistic self-perception. Thus, self-knowledge is crucial. By understanding our strengths and limitations, we can align our actions with what we are naturally good at, thereby avoiding the suffering that comes from confronting our weaknesses. Additionally, Schopenhauer emphasized that what truly matters is not what we have, but how we feel. Health and cheerfulness, in his view, are far more important than fame or wealth. He concluded that the healthy beggar is happier than the sick king. Although Schopenhauer did not advocate for full asceticism, he did recommend a form of indifference toward external circumstances, borrowing from the Epicurean philosophy of pleasure. The key is to focus on fulfilling basic, easily attainable needs, such as food and drink, while avoiding the pursuit of fame and fortune, which are both difficult to achieve and impossible to sustain. This pursuit only leads to suffering when we lose what we have worked so hard to attain. In summary, Schopenhauer leads us to a golden middle path, not chasing after illusory happiness, nor engaging in extreme self-denial. Rather, we should seek out modest pleasures that do not lead to greater suffering, while avoiding those that cause pain when lost. Above all, he reminds us to prioritize our mental and physical health, as the ability to feel good within ourselves allows us to bear the burdens of the external world more easily.